Should you rent a home or buy a home? What's better for you? Well, that's what we're talking about today, and we're starting right now. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Dwight Strew and I'm a realtor in Edmonton, Alberta, and I have been since 1987. I regularly post videos with helpful advice on selling and buying a home. So if it's your first time here, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss anything. You've probably heard a lot of people say it's always better to buy your home versus renting your home, but is it really? As a realtor, you think that I'd be one of those people who tell you it's always better to buy, but you know what? It's just not always the best option. So today, I'm going to give you some pros and cons of both owning and renting so that you can decide yourself what is best for your housing needs. So let's start by discussing some of the advantages of renting over buying. Well, number one is renting is cheaper in the short term. You don't need to invest a down payment of several thousands of dollars and you won't need any closing costs. Well, those are things like lawyer's fees, inspection fees, and so on, which are normally a few $1,000s. Usually to rent, all you need is the first month's rent and a security deposit of no more than 1 month's rent. So it is much, much cheaper to rent than own, at least initially. Now, even if you do have these funds available, you could invest them elsewhere, maybe an RRSP or a TFSA, or maybe your own business, for example. Now, you'd have to weigh the return of those investments versus investing in your own home to see which is financially better. Now, also, when you're renting, your maintenance costs will be lower. So everything from an appliance repair to major repairs like roofing, furnace replacement, well, those are the responsibility of the landlord, not you. So you won't have any unexpected financial surprises. Number two is there is more flexibility to move when you are renting. Now, this can depend on your lease, of course, but if you are on a month-to-month lease, you can just give your landlord 1 month's notice and then move. If you own, it's much more complicated, and depending on the market, it will usually take you longer and cost more in selling fees. Now, if you are new to a city and you don't know what part of the city you want to be in, renting is probably a better option, at least until you get to know where you really want to settle. Or, if your work causes you to relocate a lot, renting also may be a better option. Well, these are two pretty convincing arguments for renting over buying. And you may wonder, why would anyone buy? Well, let's look at some of the downsides of renting as well. First, your landlord could decide to sell anytime for a number of reasons, and you have to move out and look for a new place. Perhaps that's just a minor inconvenience, but if it happens multiple times, it will be more than a minor inconvenience. Now, you could mitigate this by signing a longer-term lease, but remember, one of the advantages to renting is more flexibility for you to move. So if you sign a long-term lease, well, you lose that advantage. The second disadvantage to renting is that you are relying on your landlord to make necessary repairs. Now, some landlords are great, but others don't want to spend the money. So you could be in a situation where you are constantly fighting with them to get things repaired. Another downside to renting is that you cannot make any improvements to the property without the landlord's permission. So even if you want to paint a room, you'll need permission. Now, this probably isn't a big deal because as a tenant, you really don't want to be spending your money to improve your landlord's property anyway. Another disadvantage to renting is that you are always subject to rent increases. In a stable market, these may be small, but if the market is booming, you can expect large increases on a yearly basis. In a poor market, the rents may go down, but my experience is they go down slowly, not in leaps and bounds, but they certainly can go up much quicker. And lastly, many landlords will not allow pets, so that can really limit your options as far as properties to choose from if you do have a pet. So let's shift gears now and talk about some of the pros and cons to owning a home. Let's start with the pros. Well, number one is you build equity every month and with every payment. You see, every time you make your payment, a portion of that payment goes to paying off the mortgage. It's kind of like a forced savings plan. When you rent, 100% of your monthly payment goes to the landlord. Number two is owning a home helps you build long-term wealth. In fact, it's one of the few investments you can make where the gain is tax-free. Even an RRSP is not tax-free because you're only deferring the taxes until retirement. But with your home, any gain in value is tax-free. Yes, gains in a TFSA are tax-free as well, but there is a limit as to how much you can invest in that. Now also, over a long period of time, the actual value of your property is likely to increase. So let's say you buy a home for $300,000 and over time it appreciates by, let's say 2% a year over 20 years. Well, your $300,000 home is now worth $445,000. And if you chose to pay it off in 20 years, you would now have $445,000 of equity in your home. But if you rented your home over those 20 years, you would have zero in equity. Your landlord, however, will have made out pretty well. Number 3 is that home ownership acts as a hedge against inflation. When you rent, your rent payment is sure likely to go up over time. Now, over a few years, this may not be a big difference. But if your rent goes up, let's say 2 to 3% a year over 20 years, well, you're going to be paying a lot more in rent down the road. However, if you own, your mortgage payment does not change with inflation. It may go up or down depending on interest rates. But if you lock into a longer term, let's say 5 years, for example, you won't have any changes to your monthly payment for at least 5 years. Number 4 is owning will likely give you more options to own a home you truly love. Normally, you will find there are more homes available for sale than for rent, and especially nicer homes with better finishings and more upgrades. Now, I'm certainly not saying you cannot find nice rental homes, only that you will likely have more selection when buying versus renting. And also, when you're buying, you might be okay with a property that requires a little bit of cosmetic upgrading, things like painting or flooring. But with a rental, you're certainly not going to want to invest your money in upgrading a property you don't even own. Number 5 is you can make changes to your property as you see fit. You don't need your landlord's permission, so go ahead and paint and decorate as you wish. And of course, if you want, you can get a pet or pets without your landlord's permission. Number 6 is the pride you may feel from owning your own home. Now, this is certainly an intangible, and to some it may not be important at all, but others will feel more of a sense of pride in their home if in fact they own it. And number 7 is long-term security. Eventually, your home will be paid off and you won't have any more payments. And that will be especially nice in retirement years instead of continuing to have to make rent payments month after month after month. So as you can see, there are a lot of pros to owning, but there are some downsides as well. For example, owning will require more discipline as you will need to save up for your down payment and closing costs. Now that said, there are some options out there that will allow you to use your RSP for your down payment. You could also finance your down payment, although you will pay a higher interest rate on your mortgage if you do that. You may also qualify for an interest-free loan from the federal government to use towards your down payment, but there are some conditions attached to that. Another downside to owning is it is easier to get financial trouble by overextending yourself. Many buyers buy the maximum the bank will lend them. But what happens if you get laid off or if interest rates go up? If you're too highly leveraged, you could find yourself in foreclosure, and you will likely lose any equity you may have had, and it will also destroy your credit rating for several years. Another downside to owning is that prices could go down. Now, this is not a big deal if you don't have to sell because you can always wait it out. You're still paying down your mortgage every month and eventually the prices will go back up again. But what if you have to sell when prices are down? I mean, you could very well end up losing money. Now, I've heard some people and even some realtors say that prices always go up, but obviously they haven't been around as long as I have because I've been through several markets where prices have in fact gone down. Maybe in the long term they always go up, but over shorter terms they can certainly go down. The question is, what will they be doing when you want to sell? Well, as you can see, there are a lot of factors you should consider when choosing whether to buy or rent a home. Home ownership may be the best choice for many, but it's not for everyone. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up button, leave a comment down below, and let me know whether buying or renting makes more sense for you, and be sure to hit the subscribe button. I post new videos regularly with great advice on buying and selling. Thanks so much for watching. Till next time.